Good thing you have insurance. The lady in front of you just called that Bernstein.
Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.
Now, here's Ed Bernstein.
Well, it's election time, obviously. And you know, when you watch television, all you see are commercial after commercial for governor, U.S. Senate, congressional candidates, maybe some county commissioners. But by and large, some of the most important offices are the local offices, Justice of the Peace being one of those. And sometimes these candidates just don't have the millions and millions of dollars to spend to get on television. So today we're going to talk to two candidates that are vying for a position in Justice Court, James Leavitt, and a little bit later on in the show, Elana Graham. James Dean Leavitt, named after the famous James Dean.
Yeah, I wish, it'd be better if that were the story. My mother's middle name was Dean. It was a family name passed on by her mother, and anyways, ended up being a great name, and certainly proud to have it. And
see, I felt for sure there was a connection because your history with the rebels, James Dean being a rebel. Looked at your license plate; it also is a big rebel thing, right? I mean,
it is.
It all kind of goes together, but it's a coincidence.
Yeah, it's a coincidence, and what greater mascot for UNLV to have than rebels? I mean, here they are, the southern school in the state, trying to catch up to their big brothers, UNR. So it fit the signature movie, and believe it or not, Rebel with a Cause by James Dean is a film that I watched about 3 months ago for the first time.
For the first time?
I've never watched Giant.
No.
I've never watched East of Eden, and I just thought, someone gave me the DVD, and of course, who has a DVD player anymore? Right. So I actually had to rent the film, but I thought since someone gave me the DVD, I better download it. But I was impressed, and I could sort of see why people were attracted to someone. He was very impressionistic and idealistic, and he sort of represented troubled youth, and that's who I hope to save in the Las Vegas Justice Court.
Right, and prior to and you are an attorney, but prior to running for Justice Court, I mean, you have a history with the rebels. I mean, you taught there and you became a regent. What is that history?
Yeah, so very fortunate. I arrived here in 1991. I had a chance to work with Gallus Earl, Catalano Smith doing personal injury, a field, and then
in that time, we need to mention Neil Gallus was the godfather of personal injury law at that time.
He was the godfather of personal injury law. You might have eclipsed him at some point, but at that time, I think that's fair to say. And then I had a chance to work with Goodman and Chesnoff doing criminal defense. That resonated more.
Godfather of criminal law.
Yeah, look, I've been so blessed to work with some of these just amazing people. And these were people that gave back to the community. These people were
Good thing you have insurance. The lady in front of you just called that Bernstein.
Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.
Now, here's Ed Bernstein.
Well, it's election time, obviously. And when you watch television, all you see are commercial after commercial for governor, U.S. Senate, or the local offices, Justice of the Peace being one of those. And sometimes these candidates just don't have the millions and millions of dollars to spend to get on television. So today we're going to talk to two candidates that are vying for a position in Justice Court, James Dean Leavitt, and a little bit later on in the show, Elana Graham. James Dean Leavitt, named after the famous James Dean.
Yeah, I wish, it'd be better if that were the story. My mother's middle name was Dean. It was a family name passed on by her mother, and anyways, ended up being a great name, and certainly proud to have it. And
see, I felt for sure there was a connection because your history with the rebels, James Dean being a rebel. Looked at your license plate; it also is a big rebel thing, right? I mean,
it is.
It all kind of goes together, but it's a coincidence.
Yeah, it's a coincidence, and what greater mascot for UNLV to have than rebels? I mean, here they are, the southern school in the state, trying to catch up to their big brothers, UNR. So it fit the signature movie, and believe it or not, Rebel with a Cause by James Dean is a film that I watched about 3 months ago for the first time.
For the first
time. I've never watched Giant.
Interested. No.
I've never watched East of Eden, and I just thought someone gave me the DVD, and of course, who has a DVD player anymore?
Right.
So I actually had to rent the film, but I thought since someone gave me the DVD, I better download it. But I was impressed, and I could sort of see why people were attracted to someone. He was very impressionistic and idealistic, and he sort of represented troubled youth, and that's who I hope to save in the Las Vegas Justice Court.
Right, and prior to and you are an attorney, but prior to running for Justice Court, I mean, you have a history with the rebels. I mean, you taught there and you became a regent. What is that history?
Yeah, so very fortunate. I arrived here in 1991. I had a chance to work with Gallus Earl, Catalano Smith doing personal injury, a field, and then
in that time, we need to mention Neil Gallus was the godfather of personal injury law at that time.
He was the godfather of personal injury law. You might have eclipsed him at some point, but at that time, I think that's fair to say. And then I had a chance to work with Goodman and Chesnoff doing criminal defense. That resonated more.
Godfather of criminal law.
Yeah, look, I've been so blessed to work with some of these just amazing people. And these were people that gave back to the community. These people were leaders in their field. And then in 1993, I had an opportunity to be a professor with the Greenspun School of Communications from 1993 to 1998. And I taught public speaking. And of course, that's the course that everybody puts off because everybody's absolutely terrified of public speaking. And so I would have really mostly seniors in my class, believe it or not freshmen, because this was the final course they needed to graduate. They were okay with calculus, they were okay with statistics and other classes I wouldn't have passed, but public speaking was what I had the chance to teach. And that was my undergrad, was speech communication and rhetoric.
Give me one tip of how somebody can get over a fear of public speaking.
First of all, tip number one is speak about something that you know something about. Because you always know something about something. Right. And if you're talking about something that you know something about, then you're an authority figure on that. So that would be the first thing that I recommend to everybody. Don't talk about something I want you to talk about. There's something you know about. So talk about something you're interested in. If you're interested in it, you're probably good at it.
So what motivated you at that time in your life to get involved with the University Regents?
When I was a teenager, really my first memories really as a teenager are watching basically All the President's Men, Watergate. That was happening when I was 10, 11, and 12 as a young man. Wasn't interested in science at all. My dad was a physician. None of those things resonated with me, but I was fascinated with American politics, with power, with the different branches of government. We saw all those things raised with Watergate, and watching those things unfold. And then a couple of years later, we had the Iran-Contra hearings, and I would skip high school and come home, unbeknownst to my parents, and I would watch the Iran-Contra hearings.
Oh, you're an urging.
Well, but a little bit, but I always thought, that law would be the way to get to politics. Right. I never really saw myself as a lawyer. I thought I would need legal training to end up participating, in the political world. And so I had an opportunity, took an opportunity to run for the board and ran against Tom Kirkpatrick, the incumbent, and Gloria Sturman was my general election opponent. And it seems like yesterday, but that was 2004. There were 6 of us, and succeeded there, and then ran again for election in 2010. But that was by far the greatest experience of my life, those 12 years.
And what is it about Justice Court that is attractive to you?
Well, so if you look at my history, I was a missionary when I was 19 14 years of age in East Los Angeles, okay? And so you're saving souls, you know, figuratively, maybe even literally. As a criminal defense lawyer, I told you I had an opportunity to do personal injury, had an opportunity to do criminal defense. Criminal defense is what really resonated with my core, the individual rights, and of course what distinguishes us in the United States, and I've lived in 2 different countries, as you know, but what distinguishes us in this country is the Bill of Rights. It's the United States Constitution, and it's representing those. And so when you do criminal defense, you're representing a lot of folks that are down and out. You're representing people that have mental illness. You're looking at people that are children of alcoholics. Maybe they haven't had the same educational opportunities that you and I've had. So if you look at what I did as a missionary, if you look at what I've done for 26 years, primarily as a criminal defense lawyer, if you look at what I did on the Board of Regents, and think about what you do on the Board of Regents, you're looking at primarily first-generation students, many of them here in UNLV. You know, we spend a lot of focus on those. And really, the difference between any of us, the only difference is the educational opportunities we have. So this, for me, is a continuation. I've practiced law for long enough, to be candid with you, since 1992, 26 years. I'm just ready for a new chapter, and you know, very proud of the 12 years on the board. And I like to tease people, unlike others that left the board early for other opportunities. I served the full 12 years, and I honored that commitment and was proud to.
What's wrong with Justice Court? I mean, you get elected, you know, is there an issue that you're really passionate about?
Well, I think the main issues in Justice Court are whether we're providing the right type of outreach. Now, there are some folks in there that need to be bound over to district court. They're going to then...
And maybe we should explain some of the process that you're talking about. Okay, Justice Court is a lower court, lower jurisdictional court.
Yeah, all the initial felonies, you get arraigned. I mean, if you commit a DUI all the way up to murder in Clark County, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning, you're going to be arraigned by the Justice Court judge.
All misdemeanors.
All misdemeanors and felonies.
felonies.
The misdemeanors you'll preside over to trial in the event that they don't plead out. For the preliminary hearings, the prosecution will have to put on their case. We will determine whether there's slight or marginal evidence to believe a crime's been committed, and then the case gets bound over to district court. But absent those serious cases where you actually would have a preliminary hearing, your murder cases, your sexual assault, your violent crimes, those cases are not as likely to negotiate. Often those folks have priors, and maybe they have immigration consequences. So those are the cases that should end up being tried, but the majority of cases need to be pled out. That's the way the system works. But what it really is all those folks there that aren't going to go to prison. What are we doing? What what opportunities are we doing in Justice Court for the mentally ill, okay? For those that are homeless, for those that are less fortunate. And really, you know, and in some ways Justice Court's a clearinghouse, but I don't think we just, by housing them and warehousing them, I think we abdicate our responsibility. I think we have a responsibility as a community. And what I really want to do is partner with our higher ed institutions, particularly the College of Southern Nevada. For example, if you go into Walmart and steal something and it's $200, okay, you're going to be charged with petty larceny. You're going to be asked to pay a $500 fine. Well, these folks don't have $500, and you're going to be told to go to petty larceny school. So it's an 8-hour class where you're told not to steal. Okay, how about in my courtroom where you come back in 6 months and you've taken one class at CSN? Maybe it's welding, okay? Maybe it's record keeping. Maybe it's bookkeeping, okay?
To learn something.
To learn something. I mean, why not find out what educational achievements that they've attained in Justice Court? Then why not have a partnership with CSN where we're doing something that can inspire? Justice Court judges, I mean, if you sit there in Justice Court, and I'm not going to name judges, but you sit there and what you see sometimes is just this rote, what's your name? What do you plead to? How about taking an interest in the life that you have in front of you? How about for that 1 minute, how about inspiring them to be something that they could be if someone believed in them? When they find themselves in that courtroom, that's usually when they've been caught doing something. They've been on a life where they've been making poor decisions. It might be decisions with alcohol, it might be decisions with drug, there might be employment issues. So these are some of the things that you can do, because really what you want to do, if you can change 1 or 2 lives each time you sit there at 7:30 in the morning, maybe you've done something good.
And I think that's an excellent idea. And our Justice Court seems to be somewhat on the cutting edge of creating some of these social programs that you're referring to. We have a drug court, we have a veterans court, right? We have a bunch of those other
inadequately
alternative
funded,
courts.
but yes. but it's
inadequately funded.
Oh, of course.
And
of course.
how do we get funding for those?
Yeah, look,
programs?
I mean, you can get them two ways. And one of the things that, I have a very unique background. In fact, I'm not sure that anyone's ever run for the bench that's come out of the Board of Regents. Usually we see people go to the county commission, or we'll see them go to Congress. But because of the relationships I have throughout the state, I have a unique ability. I don't plan to, when the calendar's over, I want to be very, very actively involved, working with the legislature, making a case for why we need the right type of funding. But the funding's got to be turned into performance, okay? I mean, I'm not talking about a bottomless pit of money, but you've got to be able to have statistics, you've got to have relationships, and you've got to make your case. And fortunately, I've got relationships, whether it's the governor, whether it's the lieutenant governor, certainly many members. I mean, I've worked with these people for 12 years, and I think you can make a compelling case, because really, you're going to pay money anyway. And do you want to pay it at the front end, or you want to pay it at the back end? And I've always viewed, and I've said this repeatedly, I've always viewed education as an investment. I don't view it as a tax.
No, and most people would agree.
Let's hope.
Yeah, as long as
well, look, we're fighting. I mean, that's really the fight. I would say this cycle. You could say that's the fight. That's really the fight for the heart and soul of the country. I think is how you view that.
Right. And how important education may or may not be. You grew up in Canada?
I did.
So now you're a hockey fan?
I'm a huge hockey fan.
Calgary comes, plays the Golden Knights. What's side of the ice
Yeah,
are you
well,
on
look,
there?
you can't lose. You hope for overtime, and you hope the Golden Knights win in overtime, right? And,
I was at the game where the Knights played Calgary. I just couldn't get over. I thought there was 5,000 or 6,000 Calgary fans over at the T-Mobile. I just couldn't believe how committed they are.
You know what? And in fact, I took out a Facebook post that day, and that was one of the greatest days of my life. I mean, if you had told me, first of all, I'm a young kid that would huddle around the television with my younger brother when I was 5, 6, 7, and we would watch the Toronto Maple Leafs play the Montreal Canadiens in what was then Hockey Night in Canada. And of course, there were 6 teams, and as a young man growing up in Calgary, we just longed for the day that there would be a hockey team in Calgary. It seemed like that was just what happened back east. That would never happen out west, because, the population was in the east, the money was in the east, the power was in the east. And then as a teenager, when the Calgary Flames got their organization, of course, it came from Atlanta, as you know. So that was a huge thing. And then if you had told me 2 years ago that the Las Vegas
team in the desert. Who would
that's
believe?
right. I wouldn't have believed it.
James Dean Leavitt, candidate for Las Vegas Justice Court. Good luck. He's vying against Ilana Graham. Ilana. My daughter's name is Ilana. I should know better than
there you go.
Or Elizabeth. Ilana Graham. We'll be right back.
Thanks for having me.
When sorry is not enough. Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.
Back now, Elana Graham, and it is Ilana, because I mentioned earlier before the break that I mistakenly for a second started to say Elizabeth, and then I realized, oh my God, my daughter's name is Ilana. I am really got a big price to pay, and you and I have talked about that.
That would have been bad, Ed.
Multiple times. But and Ilana, of course, means tree, right?
In Hebrew.
It means tree in Hebrew, right? So
I've learned that.
Right, to have that foundation.
Exactly.
Of a big tree. You are an attorney.
Yes.
Interested in becoming a justice of the peace in Justice Court.
Correct.
Why?
Well, I'm a chief deputy district attorney in the criminal division. I've been doing that since 2011, and prosecuting cases anywhere from like a petty larceny, shoplift, all the way to homicide, sexual assault, robbery. And recently, Justice Court Department 1 became vacant with the retirement of Judge Deborah Lippis, who had been serving our community in that capacity for a couple decades. Yes. Yeah. And so Justice Court is so vital to our community safety, our community resources, victims' rights, the rights of the accused, and I've learned that and appreciated that and kind of mastered my skills in Justice Court, having appeared there daily, weekly, monthly for the past 7 or 8 years, that I realized there's a real void that she created when she retired. Nearly every single criminal case that's filed starts in Justice Court. And so I care deeply about this community. I'm born and raised here. I'm raising my family with my husband here. And I think we need somebody with the experience, the command of the laws, knowledge of the law, and how justice court in a criminal case impacts people in our community. And I saw that void was there, and certainly I think I'm capable, qualified, the most qualified to fill that void in the most effective way.
If you had carte blanche and can become a justice of the peace, get into justice court, and create a change, a new program, a change, something like that, what would you do?
That's a tough question because the resources are so limited in justice court.
Let's say you had resources.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
So when I started at the DA's office, there was only one specialty court in justice court that had to do with DUI, people who are repeat offenders for DUI. Now we have community court that helps misdemeanors, people accused of misdemeanor, vagrancy type crimes that are committed basically because of somebody's circumstance, homeless, a little bit of drug addiction. We have community court now. Drug court just started within the past 24 months in justice court. So if I had carte blanche, I would create more and become part of the adjudication of cases in more specialty court programs. Mental health court, which we don't have in justice court. More resources to our drug court. More resources to our community court. Veterans court, which was created, basically get more resources because statistics and data has shown that people placed in those programs can be very effective at turning their lives around, and that's what we want for a community as a whole, for people to get back up on their feet. That as well as more rights and resources for victims of crime. A lot of victims of crime are indigent themselves. When they have crimes committed upon them, it has a different impact as if a crime were committed upon me or you. If our cars are stolen out there in the parking lot, we could probably get through that pretty seamlessly because we're fortunate enough to have some resources that would help us to get back on our feet, whereas somebody's car who's stolen, a single mom who has multiple children who has to get those kids to daycare and work, that would really derail her life. So more resources to victims of crime. Those are the two kind of the biggest programs that I would try to initiate if I did have carte blanche.
What seems to be working in justice court, and are we any different than other jurisdictions?
Truly, the data does support that when an offender puts forth the effort to wanting to be helped and put back on track, the specialty court programs, the statistics and the data show that those programs are really successful. Not all of the people placed in those programs are going to turn their lives around, because anybody who has any experience whatsoever with a drug addicted person or somebody who has mental health issues knows that that's kind of an ongoing cycle of somebody's life. And so maybe the first time it doesn't work or the second time, but I think what's shown to be effective is those programs, and as well as incentivizing the offender to do well. And sometimes that comes with a consequence, a punishment of some jail time or a higher fine or more community service. There needs to be consequences to people's actions. I mean, you're a father, you know, it's kind of like raising kids.
Yeah. This is a new experience for you, running for political office,
Yes.
and even though it's it's the court system, it still
Sure.
is. There's a political component to that. What has been some of the positive things about running for office that you've encountered?
I would say the most positive thing, and I guess something that I'm still surprised by, is the overwhelming amount of support that I've received, and that's from people that I just meet for the first time on the campaign trail, and talking to them, informing them about who I am, what I'm about, and why I'm the best candidate for this position. Friends of mine who have given their time, money to help my campaign because they believe in me and they believe that Justice Court would be better if I was elected. Friends, family, people from every walk of life that I've had, friends that I've had since I was 10, 11, or 12, and their parents, have contacted me. What can we do to help? We think you'd be great. So that's probably the most positive thing, as well as I was born and raised here, and getting back out to the community that I love and I care deeply for. And
Where'd you go to high school?
Bonanza High School.
Right, okay.
Go Bengals. getting back into the community to get in touch with different programs and different community leaders has been really enlightening. And so I've really appreciated that aspect as well.
There's so much money being spent for Senate races, congressional races, governor races, question 3, spending an outrageous amount of money. It's very difficult for a justice of the peace candidate to get information out to the public. Has that been frustrating for you?
It's incredibly challenging, I would say. And you always have to, no matter what, like for instance, question 3, there's a lot of money poured into both sides. And both sides are going to tell you, oh, this is terrible. Voting yes is terrible. Voting no is terrible. So it's like, well, how do you really get to the bottom of it? What I've tried to do is just campaign on my credentials, my experience. One objective fact that cannot be disputed, for instance, is my opponent has never ever tried a case in front of a jury. He has 0 felony jury trials. And that's something that can't be disputed. I've done it 27 times. I've argued before a Nevada Supreme Court. I've created law. My opponent has done neither of those 3 things. So in a way that I can actually reach people and talk to people and let them know that, that's something that I think is effective. But as you said, Ed, it's just really complicated and complex to try to get your message out, even if you think you are the best candidate, with some good quality facts to show people is, how do you compete with a gubernatorial race or congressional races? When, in my opinion, I think that justice of the peace and your justice court judges can impact your life just as much or more than those higher offices, because we are so tied into our community.
I totally agree, and I advocate that all the time for judges and city council and county commission and assembly. I mean, the more localized the position, the more important it is to any one individual.
Agreed.
Because either, as you said, either you're appearing in justice court either as get a ticket, you get you have an incident, or you're a victim, or
you're a victim,
family member's a victim,
or a future victim, because we want to make sure that people who 80% or 20% of the people commit 80% of the crime. So in justice court, that justice of the peace has the ability to impact that offender's life and anybody that offender is going to come into contact with as far as a future victim. And so as a justice of the peace, you want to be able to impart your will onto that person and give them a choice. Hey, do you want to come back into the community as a productive member? Here's some resources for you to do that. And if you don't, you don't. The choice is yours, basically.
Did you always want to become an attorney? Why did you choose a career in law?
My parents were attorneys, public attorneys. And my parents are personal heroes of mine. I think they're very fine people. And I've seen their careers and what they've been able to do. And when I went to law school, I knew that I wanted to be an attorney because, Ed, as you know, law dictates so much of our American lives. So much of our everyday lives and decisions that are coming from above are created or regulated by law. So I thought I really want to understand that process. Knowledge is power. So I went to law school and I decided I think I want to do criminal law because it's so fascinating, it's exciting, you're a trial attorney, you're in court. And I decided I want to be a prosecutor because I wanted to help people, but also shoulder the burden of having the highest ethical standard of any attorney in any branch or type of law that you practice. And I think being a district attorney is truly the best job you can have as an attorney, but it's really challenging because you do have the highest ethical standard of any attorney. Your decisions are very weighty and they impact people's lives, victims, accused, their families. And so I had my parents as an example, but then followed through, and I've been so happy and blessed with the opportunity to serve our community as a district attorney.
And of course, when you go into the district attorney's office, I mean, you get experience by fire.
Oh,
I mean,
boy.
You get a lot of courtroom experience.
That is so true.
Yeah.
I mean, in a week, I'm on the domestic violence team, which is a specialty team, and it's terrible to see the epidemic we have in this community, but in any given week, you'll try 2 to 5 cases in a week, misdemeanor cases. in the DA's office, and you can't get that volume or that experience in any other field, which is why I think I'm so well suited to become a justice of the peace.
Yeah, and it's a difficult area, that domestic area. I remember the last time I ever handled a domestic case.
Oh, yeah?
I'm happy to have, that it's way in.
I'm glad it's in your past too.
And where'd you go to law school?
At Boyd.
At Boyd?
Yep, and I decided I actually went up to UNR and I played soccer on a scholarship there.
Right.
And the Millennium. So I tell my parents, you owe me some money, because I saved them a little bit of money.
Yeah.
But and then my parents said, I had some scholarship offers from outside the state. And they said, look, if you want to come back home eventually and serve your community, you need to get back here now for law school and start making some inroads with people that can help you kind of get plugged in if you want to give back and start serving the community. And I thought, yeah, I'll take their advice. And I came back down here and went to Boyd, and it was a great experience.
Yeah, let me give a plug to Boyd Law School, because it started out as a dream, and now it's one of the top law schools in the country. And we have a writing program at Boyd, which your husband is a professor at the writing program. It's the #1 writing program of any law school anywhere in the country.
That is very impressive.
Including Harvard, Stanford, and Yale.
Yes.
Right?
Take that.
Take that up. No, it's just a tribute to what we've
Absolutely.
done in this community with the law school.
Yes.
And I work closely with them with the immigration clinic, and it's an incredible institution, and a lot of the alumni, you included, stay involved.
Absolutely, and it's something that our community can be proud of. Something outside of gaming that we've developed, that we've worked on, that community leaders like you have put resources into and have got a great return on.
Yeah. Elana Graham, good luck.
Thank you.
Election, you getting nervous?
Oh, it's in the voters' hands, and we do our best.
She just had a baby.
Just
recently.
had a baby.
Just had a baby. Last week.
Yep. 10 days ago.
You have energy, my lady.
All right.
Okay. See you next week.
Thank you.
Good thing you have insurance. The lady in front of you just called that Bernstein.
Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.